Warning, this video is both very long and probably boring unless you do now or will in the future have an interest in knitting. There are also no instructions on how to knit in this video. You have been warned. Hi, as you can probably see, I knit, and so can you. Knitting is a good way to do something with your hands while just paying attention with your ears, your eyes, even if you get good enough. You don't have to watch. I think I first got into knitting because I'm cheap and so I didn't want to like buy stuff like that, and so it's really nice to be able to make your own hats and stuff. This is the fourth thing I've knitted so far. Well, I'm in progress on this obviously, but the first thing was a little yellow square which I did like 5 years ago or something. Which that was when I first learned how to knit, but I kind of forgot. Then I relearned, and I started making this scarf. It's kind of this, yeah, and which I didn't finish because I wasn't ever gonna wear it. It's kind of like practice for hats, I'd say. This is my first hat that I made, and I like it kind of. I'm doing, I knit it like I'm knitting this one in the round. So you use this circular needle, which is, there's two needles and then there's kind of like a plastic cable that connects them. So instead of like, in straight knitting, instead of just like knitting and knitting and then transferring it, I mean like knitting it all onto the other needle and then going back and basically going back and forth. In circular knitting, you just knit in a spiral. You knit around and around and around, and you don't like stop and switch, which is cool. I like it better. And if you just knit regularly, you end up with a totally different stitch for some strange reason. When you're doing circular knitting, you end up with stockinette or whatever. Looks like this, and on the other side it looks more normal, like this. But the thing is, it kind of curls in on itself. And I didn't know that, so I'm trying to press it and stuff, but with this one I'm doing alternating knit and purl stitches, so it should give it ribbing or some sort of texture, and it already feels thicker, so I'm going to try that and see if that works. This obviously is not a perfect hat. I'm thinking of giving it to someone with a smaller head, just in case. Also, the top is kind of like ridged, I don't know. I think I pulled it a little too tight or something. But anyway, I don't think it's bad for a first try. So yeah, if you want to start knitting hats, it's probably a good idea to do some regular straight knitting like that scarf first, just to practice getting the stitches down. So basically what you need to start, I mean, if you're going to do your scarf just starting out, you need a set of needles. I started with 5s, which are really small, kind of, and so the smaller the needle, the tighter the fabric is. I mean, the smaller the stitches are going to be. Because you see that these stitches are made from a 5, and these stitches are made from a 7. It's not really that much of a difference that you can see because they're so close, but like 10s and stuff are huge, and it's gonna go faster, but it's gonna have like bigger gaps and stuff like that. So I think that a good size to start out is 7, maybe a little bigger. I use bamboo, which is, I think it's supposed to be a little more expensive than metal, but I'm used to it because my first ones were bamboo, so I just like keep using them. And I think eventually they splinter or something, but that hasn't happened to mine yet. And you also need a bolt of yarn or something. If you're first starting out, it might be easier to use something that's variegated, so that like the strings are different colors, so you don't get them confused. But eventually you can, I mean, and also it makes like a cool like stripe pattern without even trying. And then once you've made your practice scarf, you can move on to circular knitting and making hats, which, I don't know, that's a big thing for me. But yeah, you can make a lot of stuff. and it's pretty cheap. I mean, these are like $3 or something. And needles aren't that expensive either. I think it's like a package for like nothing more than $5. That's just insanity. So yeah, it's a fairly cheap hobby, and you're making clothing, sort of. So it's worth checking out, I think. So later on, I'm going to be posting videos about like the individual stitches and like actual technical stuff. So if anyone's out there watching, wait and see videos. This episode of Radeon 7X brought to you by Ohais, who are people who act surprised at the beginning of their video. Oh hi, I'm just knitting.